Okay, so I just want to start off with a medrash, not related to anything in the Gemara, just on this week's parsha, just to share. I thought it was very interesting. I think there's a lot we can learn from here. It's Tנחomã and Kdoshim Siman Ches. Ki savoyu ela oretz unetatem. Amalahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisrael, Af al pi shetimtzu ois hamalei kol tov. Even though you'll find Eretz Yisrael full of all kinds of good things, lo yisayimru neishev v'lo nita. Don't say we'll sit back and we won't plant anything. Ela havu zehirim ben atiyas. You should be careful to plant. I mean, make an effort to go out and plant trees. Shenemar unetatem kol etz machal. That's a statement pasuk. That's what you should do. The same way when you came in and you found trees and plants that were already planted by others, so too you should plant for others. Meaning others planted for you, so to speak, so you go and plant for others. So a person shouldn't say, I'm an old man already. How long do I live already? Why should I work hard for other people? The guy's going to die tomorrow. He's not living forever. Omar Shlomo, so Shlomo Melech says, "As a kol also yofa beitay, games ha'olam nasam belibam. Ha'olam ksev chaser vav." So Shlomo Melech says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made everything as a kol also yofa beitay in the perfect timing. Games ha'olam nasam belibam, and olam the Medrash says is chaser vav. Mahu kain. Ilulei HaKadosh Baruch Hu helam milibay shel adam es hamisa lahaya bainav lo neteya. The fascinating thing, the philosophers are very busy with this, and there's a tremendous motivation to live due to the fact that we don't know when we're going to die. This is not what I wanted to talk about, but it's an interesting thing to think of. If we would know when we're going to die, right? So we'll save everything for the last, 2 weeks. We'll, finish everything up then. And then, one of the things that's mechusim ibnei adam, one of the things that we don't know, one of the mysteries of the world, is the fact that we can never be sure, if when we're going to die. Because the Gemara, Mishnah Perek says, "Shuv yom echad l'fnei misascha." Do tshuva day before you're going to die. In fact, the Gemara Shabbos, the person knows when he's going to die. No, so nimtza kol yamav b'tshuva. See, he stays away from chet and he lives a life of tshuva, and it's a good tizach. So ilulei shakadosh baruch hu helam milibar shel adam es hamisa. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wouldn't remove the time when a person is going to die, meaning if a person would know when he's going to die, he wouldn't build and he wouldn't plant. He would say, tomorrow I'm going to die. Why should I stand and work hard for others? Therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu withheld and hid from the hearts of people the day when they're going to die. If he's going to build, he'll be zaycha, and he'll be a productive person. He'll live a productive life. He'll have what to give over to his children. Lo zacha, if he wasn't zaycha to be a productive person, la'acherim, so other people will have to go in his stead. And here's a story that the Medrash brings, which I found quite fascinating, and I think there's a tremendous lesson to be learned from the story. Ma'aseh Adrianus HaMelech, there was a story with Adrianus the king. He was traveling to a war. He was going to fight some battle somewhere against some other nation that was rebelling against him. He sees the old fellow standing on the side of the road that was planting figs. The king says to the old man, "You're so old, why are you so busy working so hard? How could you benefit from it? You're going to die soon. You're an old man." The fellow says to the king, my master the king, if I'm zaycha, if I merit this, maybe I'll be nana from this tree that I'm planting. And if not, my children will eat from it. There's a Gemara Tainus we're familiar with, the story of Choni Amagal. He saw a fellow planting a carob tree. So he says, "What are you planting it for?" He says, "It takes 70 years to grow." So he says, "What do you mean?" "I'm not planting it for me, I'm planting it for my kids." So the Gemara says he went to sleep for 70 years, and he came back, and he sees an old man taking care of the tree. It was the same old man, it was his son. So he comes into his imagination. Imagine a guy goes to sleep 5 years ago and wakes up today. Yeah, the world is so different. He wouldn't understand Parsha wouldn't understand the language that anybody's talking about. He never heard of COVID. He never heard of mask mandates. He never heard of vaccines. let's say a person would have went to sleep 12 years ago and wakes up today. Doesn't hear of anything about the Geton in the Welt. He went to sleep, Reb Chaim Kanievsky was alive. He wakes up, Reb Chaim's not around anymore. The Gedolim that we lost in the last 10 years or so. The world changes. So the Medrash continues. Also, 3 years the king's fighting the war, he comes back. After the 3 years, he's going back on the same route home. He meets his old man that he met on the way to the war. What did the Zaken do? He took a basket and filled it up with the juicy figs and gave it to the king. He says to him, Adoni HaMelech, my master the king, accept this humble present from your servant. I'm that same old guy that you met, I'm still around. It is a lot of times people don't appreciate the older people, and many times the old people, they're still around to HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a cheshbon for each person, exactly when they're born, but we can see that in the Gemara, and exactly when their time's up. But Martali, he said to me, Atazokai, meaning he tells the king, you told me Atazokai, you're old man, Marta Mitzar, why are you paining yourself? I made a mistake. HaKadosh Baruch Hu already gave me the schus to benefit from my fruits that I planted. And this present that I'm giving you in this basket are the fruits of my labor from that when you saw me working hard. Pay attention to what the old man is saying. He's not saying, oh, I'm still around. Pay attention. The Medrash doesn't really say what it's driving until the very end. You'll see. I'm going to wait to the end and keep you in suspense a little bit to tell you what happened. So the king said to his servants, take this basket of figs, and fill it up with gold. And that's what they did. So the old man took the basket full of gold coins. He goes home and he's so grateful, and he got such a present from the king, so chashuv, and so he's so important in the eyes of the king. Tells everybody about it. Tells them exactly what happened. He had some nosy neighbor that was, watching was to She heard what this old man was saying. She says to her husband, she says to her husband, everyone's doing something, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving them shefa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving them good things, and you're sitting in a house that's dark. Our neighbor, with a basket full of figs, and filled up the basket with gold coins. He said, what are you sitting at home like an old man? Fill up your basket, big chashuv basket full of all kinds of sweet fruits, apples and figs and other kinds of beautiful fruits that you like very much, and go be mechaber the king with them. Maybe the king's going to be in a good mood, you'll inspire him. He gave it to the old man next door, maybe you'll try your luck too with the king. Like he did to the old man. He listened to his wife. He took a big basket, filled it up with all kinds of sweet things with te'enim and apples, and he carried it on his shoulder, and he went on a shortcut to the king, and he gave him the basket. And he stood in front of the king. My master the king, I heard that you love fruits, and I wanted to be mechabed you with figs and apples, because I know that you love them so much. The king said to his servant, to his officers, take this away from him, and dump it in his face. They stripped him of his clothing, they started punching him in his face, till his whole face was swollen. They blinded his eyes. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but they taught him a lesson. He came home so upset. also dugma, they made a fool out of him, they were mavaza him, and they punished him, and they mezalzel in him. Boicher, he was crying. So she sees him coming up the driveway, and she's assuming he's coming home with a basket full of the gold. She's expecting, yeah, father. She sees him all clapped and all beaten up and all bruised, and his eyes are all swollen. And he's broken and battered. She says, Malach, what happened? Oh, Malach, he tells her, I listened to you, and I took your advice, and I went to be mechabed the king with this basket. And they hit me over the head. Even if I would have brought a sregim, which sounds like more of a chashva fruit, they would take all this sregim and throw them at me. What's this whole ma'isa? What's this whole ma'isa? The evil women are going to bring down their husbands. Therefore, a person shouldn't stop from planting. The same way you found trees that were previously planted, go on your own and plant on your own. Even if you're an old man. Akash Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisrael, Limdu mimeni, learn from me, kaviyachal ani tzarech. As Ke'ilu, Akash Baruch Hu himself is saying that I need these trees. Shenemar, Vayita Hashem Elokim gan be'edem mikedem. Ad kana medrash. And Pasuk says that Hashem himself planted the trees in Gan Eden Mikedem. So, first disclaimer: the medrash is not saying anything bad about Nashim. Just that this woman had an evil plot, and we're going to explain what was bad about it in a minute. And she got her husband in trouble. The Gemara says that Nashim have bini yisera. There's something that they have. There is a certain, nuanced sense that they have that maybe men don't have. That's not right. That's not the point of the marriage. But it was her idea, and he didn't think it was such a bad idea because why would it sound like such a bad idea? So what happened? What's the avla? What's the issue over here? And the medrash ends off, Elo kashem shematza oid yosef yita. Sorry, one line before that. A person shouldn't stop from planting. The same way you found things, meaning a person shouldn't rest on his laurels and say, oh, I came to such a beautiful place over here, I shouldn't do anything of my own. A person will say, I went through a sugya. There's so many Rishonim and so many Achronim, I shouldn't bother trying to figure it out on my own how I understand it. We stop thinking for ourselves. The point over here is like this. There's an old man who was Oymeid Tereach, and we say Geil Acherim. He was working hard, whether it was for himself, or whether it was for other people. He was working hard. That's the point of the medrash. It's not because, what did the old man tell the king? He said, maybe I'll be zeicha, maybe my children will be zeicha. He's not concerned of who's going to be benefit from the trees. He's not concerned about what's going to be in 20 years from now. Are they going to be able to benefit from the fruits? Right now, I have to work. I have to produce. I have to be productive. I have to be creative. I have to come up with something else. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisrael, learn from me, because I need these trees. Because I planted a Gan Be'eden Mikedem, you guys should also go and plant more trees. Meaning, a person shouldn't say, oh, what could I do? Work hard, you'll make something. Work hard, you'll get something. You'll get somewhere. Work on a sugya, you'll figure something out. So I thought it was a fascinating story. There's so many different parts to the story. We're getting back to what the wife told the husband. First of all, you hear how she's not talking to him so nicely. Amr Labaila, she says to her husband, Kol b'nei Adam, everybody's doing stuff. I say, why are you doing this? What do you mean everyone else does? This is Kentaretz. That's not an answer. Be creative. Be original. What happened here? What happened was, in summary, what happened in the story was, I think there's two nakudas here. Nakuda number one is that Zakain was doing something and the neighbor copied. A copy is never as good as the original. Don't try to sell your copy like you're the original. It's not going to work. People can sniff it out. They took this guy to the king. The king made they made minced meat out of the guy. They mamish destroyed him. That's because he wasn't being original. No one tried to be original. If you can't, work a little harder. But the point is that you're just copying everybody else. You just saw what the neighbor did. And she tells him, you're sitting in the dark. She wanted something. She was desperate for something, desperate to bring some excitement into her life. So she tries. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because she copied. But point number 2 is that she missed the whole boat. Why? Because she only copied one prat of the story. How did the story start? The story started that what happened? The king was on his way to a war. And the king himself saw this old man, and he asked the old man, what are you doing? So the old man said, I'm working hard, I'm planting. If not for me, it's going to be for my kids. These people only saw the end of the story. They only saw the hatzlacha and the bracha that the king gave to them. They didn't see the hard work that went into the story to begin with. Now, this old man didn't do it al manas l'kabel pras. He did it because that's what he has to do. You understand? So that's the second. I think that's the second akudah from the Maisa. It's murder because the Medrash puts these two lessons together. It's havla v'fela. Just want to say one quick story before we get to the Gemara. Like this. I think the story is accurate. My Rebbe, Reb Chaim Etzgerel, was a young man living in Eretz Yisrael, and Reb Mendel Zaks was living in the neighborhood. Reb Mendel Zaks was a Ga'an HaGoinim. The tkufa that he lived, he was the biggest. There was nobody bigger than him. Kach kibalti azech big gehet from a lot of people. And he was ready, old man, he was looking moflik, he was ready in his 80s. And Reb Chaim Ezer, wanted to check him out. He was a Chavetz Chaim's Eidim, he was a Greisa Ilu, he was a Greisa Talmud Chacham. He wanted to check him out. He wanted to learn with him. Maybe he could tell him something from the Chavetz Chaim. So he was nervous because he was an old man, we know where he's holding. So he knocked on the door, and he introduced himself, and they were schmoozing a little bit, whatever it was. And he asked him if he could learn with him. See, he was mamish so happy. So he asked him, why are you so happy? He says, because people think I'm an old man. I can't learn. But I've been more than happy to learn with them. And they learned. In the back of one of Reb Chaim Moses's Svarim, Oitzer Chaim, they have it here in Yeshiva. In the back of one of them, there's a whole bunch of nice vertlach that he printed from Reb Mendel Zaks. There's a few things that I think maybe there's a little bit from Reb Leib, Reb Mendel Zaks, and Reb Erel. That's what he has. But that was interesting because this old man. The pasuk says. You have a chumash here. The pasuk says that this pasuk in Kehelas, Perek Yud Aleph. Pasuk says, "Bavoiker zaz arecha be'erev al tanach yodecha." Right, so there's different pshatim in the Gemara. What that means, the Gemara in Shabbos, Darshan says different things. One is that a Rebbe, even when he's old, he shouldn't give up his Talmidim. Another pasuk is, "Bavoiker zaz arecha le'erev al tanach yodecha ki encha yede eze yichsha hazeh oizeh v'nishneim ke'echad tovim." It's the same nakuda that the Medrash is saying. If you learn Torah when you're young, learn Torah when you get old. If you have Talmidim when you're young, you have to. I'm not sure if it's a haftocha, but it sounds like you should go after them, that you should have them. You got married and you had children when you were young, even when you're old. Well, hopefully you'll stay married, but if not, you should try to get married anyways. So Isha Bas Bana B'Ziknum Secha. Asisa Tzedakah B'Yaltu Secha. I say Tzedakah B'Ziknum Secha. Ki Einche Yidei Eze Yichsham Talmidim Uban B'Yaltu Secha is Kaimulach. You don't know where you're going to have more Hatzlacha, when you're older or when you're younger. For all you know, this old man was never Matzliach at any point in his life, but he had that strong work ethic that he wasn't willing to give up when he was old either. Because maybe the Iker Talmidim and the Iker Hashba and the Iker Hatzlacha you're going to have is only when you're much older. Matzinu Rebbe Kiva. This is an Egel Lamaita for these days. Shahoyu le Esrim ve'arba elef Talmidim. Me give us that interpret. It's the Gemara Yavamas. The Kulan Meisum be Pesach v'Adatzaris. And they all died from Pesach to Shavuos. U'ba'etel Rabbi Seinu shebedarim v'shana lehem. And he went to the Rabbi Seinu in the south and he taught them. Linin habonim. Matinu be'ivtzan shloshim banos shalachutza or shloshim banos hevi lebanov. V'kula meisu b'chayav u'bezeknusa yohelet is ovid v'neskayim le. Sachapel, it's a Gemara at the end of Haraya. We spoke about this. Ivtzan is who? Boaz. He has 60 children shemeisu b'chayav. 60 children that passed away in his lifetime. He was an old man. And he got married to Rus. Who comes from Rus? David HaMelech, Mashiach, everything. The whole world comes from this. The whole Yeshua of the whole world is going to come from the fact because one old man decided that he's going to get married and he's an old man. It's a chapella. But that's what we're saying over here. I think the Rashi is saying here, the Pasuk saying here, that's not mamish clear in the Medrash. But there's a Gavaldig in the Kut over here that you don't know where you're going to be matzliach. You don't know where you're going to hit it off. You know, I've been wondering about this. It's a very existential idea, but I've been wondering about this in a long time. You know, you meet an old man and he's a Talmud of Baron Kotler, right? Baron was lived in 1962, right? So Baron wasn't old when he passed away. He was about 70, maybe a little younger even. So the people that were the real Talmidim of Baron when Baron was young, Baron was Rosh Yeshiva in Europe before the war. Baron had Talmidim then too. So like when somebody says he's a Talmud of Baron, where exactly, when exactly, how exactly, right? In my mind, 1961, 1962, you know. But the Iker Hatzlacha of a Rebbe could be when he's much younger, or maybe even when he's older also, right? It's just different, you know. Many times people say, "Oh, he's an old man." People forget about him already. It's as if, like the Mishnah Perek says, "Kilu mei sobotam an oilam." People view old people like that. Unfortunately, people view the elderly Gedolei Yisrael like that too, and it's problematic. You know, when Rabbi Yashav Zechron Levarcha was sick, he's over 100 years old, and there was the Gans Klal Yisrael was davening for him. You know, not Gans Klal Yisrael, a lot of Klal Yisrael was davening for him. And the Shmuel Auerbach spoke by one of these Atzaras Tefillas that they had, and he asked the question. He said, "We're davening for somebody that's so old. What are the chances? How much longer could he live already anyways? He's going to live to 170? He's going to live till he's 700? He's going to be Bekoach till he's 700? Like, what are we davening for?" So he said of some Sefer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Siyata D'Shmaya to the Tzaddikim that even when they're old, and we should definitely daven for him because he could get better and he could, he could continue to do what he has to do for us, for Klal Yisrael, for himself, whatever it is. But that's just interesting that just to keep in mind that people, if Mela people say about him, "Oh, he's so old, let's stop." If people say he's old, but he's still being productive, okay, fine. What do people got to say? What? Just because people say something doesn't have any bearing on the reality where the person's holding. But a person should never say that for himself. But don't stop in the Arab. Don't stop when you're old. Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, Zol Gesund sein. Me and him was 100 years old. He was just in Toronto for Pesach. He's still traveling. There's people that are 75 that could barely make it down the block. And Hashem should give him Arichas Yomim. My brother was in Toronto, so my brother's related to him, so my brother was schmoozing with him. He's my grandfather's Rebbe. My other grandfather had a lot to do with him, so he's close to our family. Our family's close to him, however you want to say it. No, but he's still somebody that's a Godel B'Teira, that's K'nai Nahara. They should bench him.
He doesn't look that old either.
No, he's 98. All right, so let's start the Gemara. Mamish 5 minutes. 2 or 3 Nekudas in the Gemara, then we'll stop. All right, so we are holding Sanhedrin Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph. First wide line. The end of the first wide line. Omalea humina legvia ben pesisa. So Amin said, again, weiter, just the background of what we're talking about over here. The Gemara is bringing different debates and different memories and zachen about Tchias HaMesim. So Omalea humina legvia ben pesisa. So we have to talk about who he was. So we're going to see in the Gemara who he was a little bit. It's interesting. The only place in Shas he's mentioned is right here. Here's your one time you get to see him in Shas. He's mentioned in the Medrash by the name of Gvia ben Kaisaim. As some say it is sim, some say it's not. But Pashas it isn't, because the same story that the Medrash says that the Gemara says here, and the Medrash says over there. Vailachoin chayva. This min said to him, "Woe to the Rishonim," meaning he's referring to his belief. The Amrisun Misri Chayim, because you say, no, he says, "Woe to you, the Jews." He calls them Rishonim because you say that the Mesim are going to become alive. I'll bring you a raya, I'll bring you a kal v'chomer that there's no tchias ha-Mesim. The Chay and Mesi, because if those that are alive are going to die, right? So the Mesi Chayim. So if the alive ones die, the dead people don't become alive. I mean, so to speak, asking a rhetorical question. It's not mistaver that they're going to become alive. What's the tzad that they're going to become alive?
It's not literally a kal v'chomer, basically.
Right. So why is it a kal v'chomer? So I'm not sure. Let's see what Rashi says. So Gviv ben Pesisa, Rashi's on the other side, 4 lines on the top. Gviv ben Pesisa kach shemoy, that was his name. And he was bent over. He was a hunchback, like the Gemara is going to say later. So it's very interesting. Why would you call somebody a hunchback from the time when he's born? Unless the pshat is that his name was, let's say, Shmerel, and then when he got a hunchback, they started calling him hunchback. But I was thinking that there is a condition that a person could be born, that his spine is curved, right? I forgot exactly what it's called. Osteoporosis, maybe, something like that. I don't know. It's probably not, but something like that. The Aruch brings that Gvia is spelled, in the Gemara we have it spelled Gimel Beis Yud He Aleph. The Aruch has it spelled Gimel Beis Yud Ayin He. Because Gibein Oidak, right, it means somebody that's geboigen in Yiddish. Gibein is like geboigen, it's bent over. But it's a question because the Targum Rishalmi on the pasuk says Oy Gibein Gevia. But I think that Gibein Oidak has to do with a growth in the eye. A Gevia is a kais, yes. That's in Lashon Kodesh, not in Aramaic. What? No, kaisem of this with a kuf. Pesisa with a pay. I'm not sure what a pesisa is. I didn't see anybody talking about it at all. I was thinking that maybe we'll get to clarity about this in a little bit in the Gemara. But let's just go right in the Gemara for now. Malesik Gvir ben Pesisa says, Vailuchen Chayva, he says, woe to you, Rishoim. The Amrisun Misi Loi Chayim, because you say that there's no Tchis HaMesim. The Loi Hava Chayim. He tells them an interesting thing. And this is going to go back to a little bit what we were discussing before. There was a point in time when you were not alive. And you became alive, and then there's going to be a point in time when you will no longer be alive. That's how the world works, by the way. Every single person, that's how they live. That's how they happen. There's a point in time, 5, 7, 7, 8, I don't know what year we're holding anymore, 5, 7, 8, 3, right? So let's say you're born Tavshin Nun Hey. I think that's the year I was born. And, so pre-Tavshin Nun Hey, I was non-existent. Tavshin Nun Hey till hopefully a long life. And then after that, no more. So he says, you're telling me that dead people can't become alive, but people become alive from really nothing. Think about Tipas Rucha that the Gemara brought arrived from earlier. So the Loi Hava, the people that didn't exist yet, Chaya, the Hava Chaya, the Kol Sheken, the people that were alive. So they already experienced Chaim in this world. So certainly they should be able to be Zeichet to Chaim of Tchias HaMesim. Once you have, so the Lashon Chazal is, Motzei Shabbos, Lamazog and Abyss Leveg on Motzei Shabbos, let's talk a little bit about Motzei Shabbos. You meet Malav Malka, why? It's Mechaber Shabbos, basic pshat, but it states in Chazal that there's a bone in the body called the luz. It's in the back of the neck, and somewhere over there, called the luz. There are other names for it in Chazal, and there's a lot of Torah as to why it's called these things. But the point is that this bone gets nizayin, gets its nutrients from Lava Malka, and this is where Tchias HaMesim starts within a person, and it's called the Kista de Chiyusa. There's a mashra of some kind of life that's there even after a person passes away, and that's where Tchias HaMesim is going to start from. So, again, you say that we're not going to become alive again, and there's no point in Tchias HaMesim. or that, it's a silly thing to say. So, Omalei, Vailuchain Chayv, Dam Risa Misa Leichain, the Loi Hava Chaya, the Hava Chayla Kol Shekain. Omalei, Chayva Karizali. You're calling me a Rasha? Meaning the Min says to Gviya Ben Pesisa, you're calling me a Rasha? Ika Amina. Ika Imna. If I get up at Chis HaMesim, this is what the Min is telling Gviya Ben Pesisa, B'itnabach, I'm going to punch you. Upashitna La'akmusach Minach. And I'm going to punch out your hunchback. I'm going to straighten your back. Omalei, so he tells him, if you do this, if you do straighten out my back, Reife Uman Tikre, I'm going to call you a professional doctor, and I'll pay a lot of money. I mean, if you do that, I'll be very grateful for you. All right, let's see Rashi. Oh, good to kasha. Everybody's going to be healed. Ober, there is a Gemara that says, B'mumin hein oimdin. Right, everybody gets up with their movement, and the process of healing starts afterwards. Okay?
Yeah, I'm sure by the time he gets around to, finding him and punching him,
So the question was why he didn't punch him now. If I wake up by Tchias HaMesim, I'll punch you. You think by then he's going to ready, because
then he's proven wrong. He's proven wrong.
Right, no, so obviously that's the pshat, right? But, like when you're in second grade and when you're in kindergarten and someone takes away the toy that you're playing with, where you're going to be enemies with him, you're not going to invite him to your chasana? You're not going to let your kid play with him? Kids fight, that's what they do. They fight over non-rishah things. But if he's going to become the Tchias HaMesim, he's going to go through a din. There's a din that happens before Tchias HaMesim. Okay. That's the Gemara. There's actually a very interesting shmuz that I want to get to, if we can. Let's just see Rashi. The people that are alive, we see that they die. How could you say that the Mesim are going to come back alive? So he answered him, the people that never existed to begin with, they got created, and then they got born, and then they live. Meaning, we can repeat it. We can repeat life, meaning by Tchias HaMesim, because we already experienced it once. If we never experienced it, then it has the shayach to do it. We never existed to begin with. We're like, what happened before we were born? We never existed. We didn't know. So Amalei Mina, Chavik Harizali. He starts like chapping with him. Balakantarai. Okay? So then he says, if you do punch me in the back, so then I'll call you a professional doctor. Okay. So the Yavit says, he didn't want to hit him right now. He had a stick of respect for the king. He was standing in front of the king, didn't want to punch him. He was standing in front of the king. That's the next Gemara. So we're not going to have time for that now. But Mitzvah Hashem, the next Gemara we'll discuss.
Threaten him in front of the king?
Right. Meaning because he was upset enough that he was willing to say that, but he wasn't going to actually do it.
So why after him? But Tchias HaMesim, why not?
I mean, at a later time, but he was using that lashon of Tchias HaMesim to say, you're still going to be in your evil state that you are now, so to speak. There is a question if Gvir ben Pesisa would have to taka pay him or not.
He's not going to actually heal him, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think you can punch a hunchback and heal him.
Well, he said if you do it, I'll call you a professional doctor. So obviously the shayla
I'm gonna punch you in here.
I'm just going to read one line. I'm just going to read one line from over here. It says like this. In the Sefer Yefei Talmud, Beer, Shekabanosei Hoysa Shafilu Shamr Chazal Tayv Shabarefim LeGehenim. Even though the good doctors go to Gehenim, says Shareife Hayoser Umar Mechaveri Nana Joseph Gehenim. The better doctor is going to get bigger Gehenim. So you're going to get a lot of schar na elam haba, and you're not going to be like the other doctors. That's why you have to tell him that you're going to get schar, because otherwise he would, would just go to Gehenim. The Imrei Bina in Semin Yud Ches and Chosher Mishpat discusses this question, so it's not a silly question. He brings this Gemara. I wanted to print it out, then out of time, but Mitzvah Hashem will get back to it. Okay. I think we'll stop here for now. And I hope that we could continue sometime either during the week or we could resume next month of Shabbos.
During the week, the only days that are Nagaya